Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. What if I told you that the giants in your Bible were real? What if I told you they were real? That Goliath wasn't the only one. And that his bloodline traces back to a rebellion that began before the flood. What if I told you that Genesis 6 isn't about myth or metaphor or even misunderstood men, but about celestial beings who crossed the line and sparked a cosmic war? Today on True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn, we're ripping the filter off of one of the most hidden, ignored, and suppressed truths of all of Scripture. We're going to the root of Nephilim. We're going to the root behind Goliath. We're going to the rebellion of the Watchers, the spiritual chaos they unleashed, and the redemption war that Yeshua himself came to finish. This is not speculation. This isn't sensationalism. This is Genesis. This is spiritual warfare. And this is real. So buckle up, get your Bible, and let's uncover the biblical truth that they never told you. Welcome to chat. Welcome to chat on both sides. The Rumble, we've got the live chat open, best I can tell. And I think, let me see here. We're going to try to make it work here. I just am not 100% sure how everything works on Rumble, but I'm liking it. I'm liking it. So I have the chat window open, and I hope that you've got me there. I said hello, so anybody listening on Rumble, I can hopefully see you there live. Anyone listening on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, X, I can see all that. So thank you very much. So as promised, my goodness, we have really done some stuff, haven't we? We have. We've been through some experiences. We've learned some wild things, and we've learned some beautiful things. I hope that you listened to yesterday's show. Yesterday's episode was dedicated to mothers, and it was an honor to do that. I know that today isn't Mother's Day, but if you didn't listen to it, I really, really, really would encourage you to listen to that. I think it's an extra special. Episode. It's very short by comparison. So for me, traditionally I'm way longer than that. All that said to say this, that it will be worth it. And hello, Martin. Good to see you, brother. God bless you. God bless you. Twitch is running as well. Thank you. Martin and my Tyrolean friend both got me up on Twitch and everything. I couldn't have done without them, and the book and everything. So good morning, Robert, Nicole, Kim, Miss Sharon. So good to see you all, and all of you who are listening that I cannot see. So, as promised, I try to never make a promise that I can't keep or that I won't keep, and won't do everything I possibly can to keep it. And I'll be very honest with you. In my lifetime, I've been a pretty solid promise keeper. But in my failings, I failed miserably. Big things. So, we move forward knowing that none of us are perfect. All of us have hurts, habits, and hang-ups. And I thank God for redemption and grace. I don't deserve any of it. So as promised, let's catch you up from Cain and Abel, the first murder, before we flow into the Nephilim. That's very, very important. By the way, click on the thumbs up, the like, the follow, especially if you're on Rumble. Boy, we're really trying to grow that. We'll explain why. I'm going to do a broadcast just for Rumble. It's going to be a Rumble exclusive broadcast, and but there's a reason, and there's a million reasons, but not the least of which is security and being able to continue producing and continue ministering and teaching. I'm not 100% sure that the current platform is. I'm 1,000% sure they're inhospitable to people of faith, but I'm not 100% sure that anything that I post, I'm never positive that it's going to stay. So anyway, that's why. And I actually like Rumble, believe it or not. It's 1/100,000th the size of YouTube. It's a big, big difference. So anyway, we're going to catch you up from Cain and Abel, the first murder, before we flow into the Nephilim. Why? Because they are related. They're related. They're connected. Context. Context isn't important. It's everything. So, Genesis 6, the Watchers and the cosmic conflict. Now, let's fast forward to a moment that reshaped humanity again. Right? Genesis 6, 1 through 4. Now, it happened when man began to multiply on the face of the land, and daughters were born to them. That's the Legacy Standard Bible and the Complete Jewish Bible. In time, when men began to multiply on the earth. So the key Hebrew term here is B'nai HaElohim. B'nai HaElohim. Sons of God. Did you know it was only used? This is only of divine beings. By the way, if you can hear rain, you think you're sitting there going, I feel like I can hear rain. And high winds. Must be my imagination. It is not your imagination. I am sure that the microphone is picking that up like a bandit. It's a gully washer. It's going to rain for the next 4 days here. I don't know about what it's like where you are. So, B'nai HaElohim, B'nai HaElohim, sons of God. This is used only to describe divine beings, never humans. In the Tanakh, that's the way it was. Never humans. Always, always divine beings. Two experts on this, Dr. Michael Heiser and Dr. Skip Moen, they affirm this interpretation. Genesis 6 is a cosmic rebellion narrative. Now, this links to, remember, Cain and Abel, the first murder, part 1. This is part 2. We're going to flow all the way into Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when we talk about David, the lineage, the Nephilim, the giant, Goliath. Such faith. I'm going to recite to you 2 poems that I've written as it relates to David and Goliath. So, I thought, Nephilim, we hear all kinds of things. We hear all kinds of things about what does Nephilim mean? Is it giants, fallen ones, or is it both? Cosmic rebellion. At first we think, well, that can't be. That sounds so way over the top. Right? Because now we don't deal with things like that. Cosmic rebellion. We hear things like cosmic rebellion and we're like, what? That seems, I don't know, fluffy. But we're in a cosmic rebellion now. The outcome is different. The consequences, they present differently. But we're still in a rebellion. Divine beings took human women. Divine beings took human women, producing the Nephilim. This is confirmed in Job 1:6, Job 38:7. Sons of God present themselves before Yahweh. How about 1 Enoch? 200 watchers descended, corrupted mankind. How about Numbers 13:33? Nephilim reappear in the promised land. Yeshua's mission was more than human redemption. He disarmed spiritual authorities. Remember, 1 Peter 3:19 preached to the imprisoned spirits. Jude 6:7, angels in chains. Colossians 2:15, disarmed rulers. And Ephesians 6:12, spiritual forces of evil. Wow. So my buddy Dennis, who really prompted this whole, by the way, you're welcome to take a sip of your coffee. Not that you need permission from me, but I'm going to take one right now. This is the second run through the cup. You know, I have one of those Lure things that makes espresso and high pressure coffee. They're really good, really tasty. But I run it through a second time because I'm cheap. Those things are expensive. It's like drinking water. Eesh. Sometimes it's better than other times, and this is not one of the better times. So I'm going to gut it out because I'm not throwing it out. Maybe you're similar. You can put in the chat whether you're that way or not. Probably I'm probably the weird one. Everybody else is like, dude, that's very strange. So earlier, my buddy Dennis, he asked great questions. They're deep. They're staccato. There's a lot of them, man. They just keep coming. Pop, 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 pop. And some I'm able to answer really quickly. And with this keyboard, I can type really fast. Nowhere near what I used to be able to type pre-crash. But I'm still, I got to brag a little bit. I can rock and roll on that. On this, oh my lands. It's a nightmare. I apologize. For any of you who have received responses from me or texts from me, and they make no sense. I try to proofread them, but lands. Maybe you put in the comments. Maybe you know what a lot of people do? They do this. Send TEXT, I don't want to say it out loud because it'll do it, to Bob Mobile, which redundant, telling him what time we're supposed to meet at the ball field. And then you hit send. And I know people that don't proof it and then send it, and then later on they get a question mark or a bunch of them. They're like, what in the world? What does this mean? I'm not there yet. So Dennis asks a lot of questions, and these actually the four episodes, because he asked a bunch of questions, and so in the process of that, I said, dude, some of it I could just pull from research. I've literally thousands and thousands of articles that I've written, and just research and sermons and Bible college teaching and all these different things. So, I have a lot here, and I can just, not the ones in boxes. I can't do that because it's not all, but a lot of it I've tried to put on. It takes a long time. That's superfluous. I don't know why I'm telling you that. Either way, Dennis asked, a series of questions, and the next part of that series is related to all of this is what is the early lineage? Like, how did they have children? Who did they marry? And why has the church been silent about a lot of this? Now, we ask the question many avoid. Look, I'm okay. Look, I don't think, I think we have this image of the early church or early beginnings of humanity, for Pete's sake. We have this image that somehow or another things were really pristine and they were the best back then. Not like now, But that's not true. Things were crazy. But at the same time, things weren't corrupted like they are now. So, how did humanity continue after Eden? It's the hard question. So Eden, they get booted from Eden for Adam's sin. Eve sinned too. She sinned too, but it was really Adam's sin because he wasn't a leader. He didn't lead her in the way that he should have. I don't mean boss around. I mean lead. Be an example. Step in. So Genesis 5:4, boy, the Jewish tradition, 33 sons, 23 daughters. That's extra biblical, by the way. That's pulling from research and early Jewish writing and writing as it relates, but is not in the Bible. Look, it's the only possible way forward. Siblings had to marry siblings. Now, I can see all the squinching faces and the, ugh. You look at your sibling, you go, my goodness, that'd be gross. That'd be the worst ever. And you think the weirdness of it, you think, of course, that's weird. I mean, I've never think of that. But the fact of the matter of it is, that was the only way forward. And the DNA pool was perfect. So there was no disruption of it. Yes, it's super strange. But that's the way forward. And the thing is the Levitical law against incest and plural marriage came much, much later, by the way. Incest, the Levitical law against that, Leviticus 18, came substantially later. Anyway, so there's other genealogies too. There's Noah, Shem, Ham, Japheth, Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, plus 6 sons by Keturah, Jacob, 12 sons plus Dinah. And daughters were mentioned, but they weren't named. There's a lot of modern discomfort, but it doesn't erase biblical truth. And I've been asked a million times, why do pastors skip over this? Why are they so afraid to touch this third rail? Why do they skip it? Fear of offense. They're afraid that in the audience, people are going to go, hey, man, that's weird. Don't love it. And what about the kids, that might be there in the audience? I don't love all that. Don't want it. Right? I don't want it. I don't love that topic, and I don't love having to explain to my kids why. What's he saying? His little brother looks over at the little sister looks over at the little brother, and the little sister's like, oh, you best explain this. Well, a lot of pastors also, there's a lot of pressure to sanitize our early history. And I get that. I get it. I get the strain and struggle with that. I do, 100%. I really do. There's an extreme pressure to sanitize. A sanitized, how do I explain? A sanitized history is a lot easier to explain, a lot less uncomfortable. It's a lot more comfortable to explain that way. Just gonna skip over that. Because there's a reluctance to admit to ancient realism. It's the early days. It's the beginning days. But you see, God's not afraid of the hard truths. The story he tells is whole, it's raw, and it's redemptive. So from Cain's envy to Abel's breath, to Eve's hope, to divine rebellion, to cosmic redemption, to our present calling, it all points to Yeshua, the better Adam, the faithful brother, the seed of the woman, the lamb, the victor, and his blood speaks a better word. His blood speaks a better word. Now, the hidden story of Nephilim, Goliath, and the spiritual war that still shapes us. By the way, if you're just joining on either Rumble or YouTube, the True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn. Maybe you're listening under the Ninja Pastor on Rumble or the True Word Faith for Life there. They all go to the same spot. Please click on follow if you're there, and click on that little thumbs up if you can. Anywhere you're listening, really. I'd love that. But I'd really love for folks to join. If you listen on audio only, just click. It costs you nothing to subscribe. I'm not going to spam you, but it would really be helpful. Anyway, the reason why is because if you don't do all those things, the show is just obscure, in the vast universe of the algorithms. Nobody sees it unless you promote it. It's bottom line. You basically my marketing people. So if you're just joining me, welcome to True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn, where biblical truth comes alive through original languages, Hebraic context, and real-life application. So subscribe now, follow now, and let's dive into the Word together. And today, we are absolutely diving epic deep into one of the most mysterious and misunderstood topics in the entire Bible, the Nephilim. Who were they? Were they fallen angels? Was Goliath a Nephilim? What does the Bible really say, and why does it matter for us today? For us, individually, for each person. Why? Why does it matter? This isn't mythology. It's not fringe conspiracy. This is Scripture. And I'm going to tell you that if you went to a very, very traditional church, depending on the tradition, within the church, the doctrine and the denomination, you may have heard pastors really, really kind of roll right over this as quickly as they possibly can. And you may have heard them even portray this as maybe a Sunday school story, just an interesting Sunday school story. And maybe they portrayed it as, something we just don't talk about. I guess maybe that's the best way to put it. We just don't talk about it. But it's not fringe conspiracy. This is Scripture, and this is war, and we're going to walk carefully through it. So Genesis 6 and the Nephilim, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about Goliath and his lineage. We're going to use biblical and apocryphal texts, the ones I trust. Insights from the Complete Jewish Bible, Dr. Michael Heiser and Dr. Moen, and how these ancient realities impact our modern spiritual battle. So let's begin with some source text. So again, Genesis 6, 1 through 4. This is Complete Jewish Bible. In time, when men began to multiply on earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of men were attractive. Right? It's built into us. And they took wives for themselves, whomever they chose. Adonai said, "My spirit will not live in human beings forever, for they too are flesh. Therefore, their lifespan is to be 120 years. The Nephilim," because again, prior to that, lots longer. "The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they bore children to them. These were the ancient heroes, men of renown." Remember the word I used, the Hebrew term, B'nai HaElohim. B'nai HaElohim, sons of God. Nephilim, Hebrew word, fallen ones, giants. The term son of God, remember, always used in the Hebrew scriptures to refer to divine beings, never human beings. Always keep that post-it note. Look, you could do a post-it note. Don't actually put it in your brain, but just take note of that. Sons of God, this term, sons of God, B'nai HaElohim, never used to refer to human beings, always to divine beings. Job 1:6, Job 38:7, both support this interpretation. So Elohim in its plural form represents beings from the spiritual realm. And I have to tell you, the early Jewish understanding of Genesis 6 was crystal clear. These were not human men. They were celestial rebels. And what did they do? They took human wives. They knew they weren't supposed to do it, but they did it. They violated the boundaries of heaven and earth. And they produced offspring, giants, hybrid beings known as the Nephilim. So Dr. Michael Heiser, he's a respected biblical scholar and Semitic languages expert. He offered some of the most clear and in-depth expositional insights into the Nephilim, often transliterated into Nephilim, how we would normally spell it out. But so his work challenges superficial interpretations and dives into the Hebrew language, the ancient Near East culture, and the spiritual worldview of the biblical authors. And I say it all the time. We've got to remember the worldview that they had at that time and in that place, the culture that they had in that time and in that place. It was a very interesting, very different sort of time. We can't imagine it because we think, come on now. Right? We can't imagine that. We think it's just insane. So, and obviously I can't share all of the teaching from any Bible scholar. I can't share all the teaching myself. You would be here for hours. I would be dead at this keyboard. I'd fall out right in front of this camera. It's not possible. You can't listen for that long unless you sign up for something. And you might be wondering what that little box is with all the little black and white and the little squares. If you're watching on Rumble or on True Word Faith for Life, if you're seeing the video. So that is, you scan that with your camera. And I'm amazed that they did this, but they did it. They reached out to me. Now, obviously, I'm not paid by Masters, International University of Divinity. I'm not paid by them. I'm an alum of Masters International. I am an alum of Masters International University of Divinity, but I'm a first alum of Masters Divinity School, and then for my grad school was Masters Graduate School of Divinity, and then now we're in 78 countries, I think maybe. And so it's called the Masters International University of Divinity. mdivs.edu, mdivs.edu. So what they've done, I'm doing this because they've been incredible for me. You're talking about the teachings and all that. Now, they don't just have all the way up through doctoral programs, PhDs, the whole bit. Masters has certificate programs, and I think that's a fantastic way to dip your toe in the water a little bit. See if you have the time. See if you are disciplined enough. See, if it works out in your life. And you may be really curious about expanding your personal ministry. You don't have to be a pastor. You don't have to be a Sunday school teacher. You don't have to be a deacon. You don't have to be any of those things. You don't have to be a small group leader, but you're a person who's super curious, and you say, hey, you know what? Let me scan that. And when you do, or if you go to mdivs.edu and you ask for more information about the certificate programs, Masters has said that if you tell them that you heard about it here from Dr. Shawn Greener, they know who I am, and the True Word Faith for Life podcast, they'll give you 10% off and they're ridiculously inexpensive anyway, but they'll give you 10% off of their certificate programs, which I think is extraordinary. What a lovely, lovely thing to do. But anyway, so you can do that. So I have condensed a lot of the key teachings on the Nephilim, drawn mostly from Dr. Heiser's scholarly works, especially his work, The Unseen Realm, Reversing Hermon, and academic articles. And by the way, I'm going to get to Dr. Moen's input on this too, which is extraordinary. So the word Nephilim, what does it mean? Remember, what did we say? We said, by the way, Heiser agrees that Nephilim comes likely from the Hebrew root, three letters, remember there are always three letters, NFL, meaning to fall, thus Nephilim, fallen ones. He disputes later rabbinic claims right? Because why would we not have a little bit of controversy? That reduced them to giants, based solely on the Greek Septuagint translation of gigantes, right? Very similar to Spanish. If Martin is still on, the Spanish, I think probably the word is probably very simple, gigantes. So in the Greek, that's what they called it down to. So that connoted strength, but it didn't, not necessarily size. So Heiser points out that fallen ones may refer to their spiritual rebellion, not merely a fall in battle or some physical stature. So the sons of God and daughters of men. What a fascinating, way to put things. How beautiful. And Dr. Heiser is unambiguous in this. Genesis 6 refers to divine beings. B'nai ha-Elohim. Remember what we said. B'nai ha-Elohim. Not human kings or lineages. He draws on the Book of Enoch, Second Temple Jewish texts, and the Dead Sea Scrolls to show that ancient Judaism universally interpreted these beings as rebellious divine sons. And Genesis 6 sets the stage for a triple rebellion in human history. Genesis 3, Genesis 6, Genesis 11. If you're studying, just, copy those down. By the way, I love hearing about the notes. A lovely dear listener sent me she said she had pages and pages of notes. I love hearing that. Now, look, if you're not a note taker, that's fine. You may have a way better memory than I have. Basically, anybody has a better memory than I have. So, these things explain the pervasive evil before the flood, right? We're trying to figure out, why did God wipe the earth? There's always a deeper story to the story. By the way, don't freak out that I give some value to the Book of Enoch, Second Temple Jewish texts, and the Dead Sea Scrolls. A lot of people freak out over that. When they hear that, sometimes when I preach or I teach, they're like, whoa, hold on, slow down, slam dancer. And I say, hey, look, here's the bottom line. Just because it didn't make it into the Bible doesn't mean there's not historical value, clarifying value. That this is really important to understand. So it's okay. You'll be all right. So Heiser wrote, the offense of the watchers wasn't merely sex. Remember what I said. It's, they wanted to go get with the women, the regular women, the earth women. It was the transmission of forbidden knowledge, weaponry, sorcery, and the corruption of humans. Really, humanity's sacred order. They corrupted the sacred order of it. And this is taken out of Reversing Herman. Phenomenal. If you like to go deep, boom, there you go. So there's a cultural context here we have to talk about. Heiser compares Genesis 6 to Ugaritic and Mesopotamian literature. Yes, there was literature then. And what it showed was divine beings like the and I'm going to say this, and you may have heard it different ways, Apkallu. These are divine beings in Mesopotamia, were often blamed for human corruption and flood-worthy evil. So there was a lot going on. So lest we wax nostalgic over something we know nothing about, we don't have a context at all, we don't experience about it, we say, oh, I wish it was back then. Really? Because you might have got eaten by something. So the Apkallu myth mirrors the biblical watchers, divine beings mating with human women and producing semi-divine offspring who become tyrants and corrupt society. Genesis 6 isn't a myth. It's not myth borrowing. It's a polemic. Heiser believed that the biblical account deliberately reinterprets pagan myths to show that Yahweh alone is sovereign, and that evil has divine spiritual it's not just by accident. It has divine spiritual origins, not just human failings, hurts, habits, and hang-ups. Now, we can't blame everything on us. Oh, that must be the devil. Like a lot of people I'll see people will type in, they'll go, if I do something stupid or I have a technical glitch or whatever, they'll say, oh, the enemy sure doesn't want you to preach this. I appreciate it. Hey, appreciate it. But bottom line, this one I got to lay squarely at the feet of, I'm a tech dunce. That's the truth. So, again, heroes of old, men of renown. Genesis 6:4. What? This, in English, in the English language translated, the game of telephone over many, many years, has culled this down in a way that we hear it and we say, that doesn't sound right. That sounds kind of weird. Heroes of old, men of renown. But this is not in a flattering way. See, it comes through all those levels of Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, and all the different translations, and then it gets to heroes of old, men of renown. But this is not a reporting of some flattering thing. They were hybrid offspring of the divine and human realm. They were an abomination. Later texts, I think I mentioned this, Numbers 13:33 mentioned them again when the spies, remember the spies are, we got to go look, Numbers 13:33. We got to go look and see what's going on down there. And when the spies report, we seemed like grasshoppers next to the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers. Heiser notes that this is likely an exaggeration by fearful spies, but it also implies Nephilim survived in some form after the flood. You say, well, how did they survive after the flood? How did they survive the flood, first of all? And Heiser offers three possibilities. Multiple incursions, the divine rebellion in Genesis 6 was not a one-time event. Survivors via wives of Noah's sons. Unclear and speculative, but it's entirely possible. Post-flood reemergence. The spirit of the rebellion continued through spiritual influence or imitation. So, according to Heiser, there's this spiritual relevance here, and he ties the Nephilim and the Watchers to cosmic warfare. That's all going on. This is all happening, and it's like, oof, I'm not loving it. Not loving it. The unclean spirits Yeshua casts out in the Gospels? Heiser sees these as disembodied Nephilim, the evil spirits of Jewish tradition, Enoch and the Jubilees. Their existence sets the stage for why Jesus's, or Yeshua's, authority over demons was such a shock in first century Israel. It makes sense. It connects. The Nephilim story sets up Jesus as the ultimate reversal, not only of Eden's curse, but of every corrupt spiritual authority that ever ruled over humanity. That's from Heiser's The Unseen Realm. Another fantastic work. By the way, Dr. Cheryl Durham, a friend and leader of the Alumni Doctoral Advisory Board, which I'm honored to be on, of Masters. Fantastic. Again, you can scan the little code thing. You can even do it by the way, if you're listening to this and you're like, look, I can't see that, I can't look at the screen, and I'm driving, whatever. I love that you're not looking. I don't want you to. I don't want you to take any risk. But when on playback, you can just click on it or screenshot it, and you can do it there. Anyway, she turned me on to Heiser, which was probably the worst thing she could have ever done, because Heiser, in connection and conjunction, and I don't want to say in concert, but because they're not working together here, they have their own thoughts. Heiser, a very different sort of person. I will say this, I'd say it to his face, he's one of the most unique people I've ever met in my life, but he's a different bird. Dr. Moen. Different bird, if you've ever been under his teaching. Different bird. Tough. Brain way up here. Right? But he's patient, and he repeats things, and he's very patient. Excellent teacher. So we'll get to some of his input here in a second. New Testament echoes. You say, well, I don't pay any mind to it. Somebody actually said this to me, by the way. Actually, a lady Episcopal priest, I guess she's called. Again, with the strained coffee. Ugh. And it's cold to boot. I'm not a cold coffee. I'm not an iced coffee guy. Ugh. I like it burning hot, almost where it burns my mouth. I like it to be hot. I get hot. Anyway, so New Testament echoes, Jude 6 and 7 and 2 Peter 2, 4. I started to tell you about, I don't know what she's called. I don't know what she's called, but she's, I don't know, is she Episcopal or is she some sort of she wears a bunch of, anyway. Well, she's the head of some group down near where I grew up, and she, one day we were having a discussion. We weren't friends or anything. We had sort of a business connection. We happened to be chatting, and I said, I made a reference to the Old Testament in something about the New Testament. And she says, oh, I don't pay any attention to the Old Testament. The Old Testament is irrelevant. I don't waste any time on it. And she has a DR before her name. And I was like, okie dokie, Smokey. How about you flesh that one out for me? And she said, they're just not related. Two entirely different things. And the one was nullified by the other. And I said, wow, really? How could you possibly understand the New Testament if you haven't studied the Old Testament? You don't get the point. Are you all listening? Can you hear me in any of these things? I just want to make sure. If you happen to have a chat, just click right on it and say, hey, I can hear you. Anyway, and that is not by the way, it's not just that lady priest. I guess that's what she's called. I hate to call her by the wrong title. But she believed that, and she's going to continue to believe that. It's not. You can't understand the New Testament. There are echoes of our past. Sometimes, I don't know if you're I'm assuming a bunch of people listening, and I don't know, if I'm talking to you here or not. Maybe it is you, but some people are very sentimental. Now, I am very sentimental. But I only have enough space to be a certain amount of sentimental. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we've downsized 3 or 4 times, but we didn't downsize our stuff. We had more square footage in storage units than we had in our house. It was stupid. But the bottom line is, you have things that get passed down. You want to pass down traditions, and if you have the space to do it, I think it's a lovely, beautiful thing. Well, this, in essence, is that pass down, right? That rough history that we went through to get here. If you're in America, that rough history, we're young, 250 years old, I guess, but our history we're young by comparison. The Jews have had these documents for thousands of years longer than we have, and because they were so good at keeping and preserving these things, we have them. I think we owe it to them to read, study, understand, because that gives us context. So Jude 6 and 7, 2 Peter 2, 4 reference the angels who sinned, linking them directly to Genesis 6. Thank you so much. Thank you very much to all of you answering up on the chat. So the book of Enoch, which is quoted by Jude, by the way, Jude quoted Enoch, lest we go, oh, yes, I don't really conclude in that. It was good enough for them to put it in the Bible. And one of these days I'll do a teaching on that, why some things were kept out of the Bible and other things are like, well, they're okay. They're okay. But and what's behind that? There's a lot behind that. Anyway, the book of Enoch was quoted by Jude, kid you not, and it describes the watchers as chained in Tartarus. They were awaiting judgment. They're chained in Tartarus, awaiting judgment. Revelation references a return of cosmic rebellion. Remember earlier on, I've said this, I think now 3 times, cosmic rebellion. Heiser hints that ancient watchers, spirits, and their influence will resurface in eschatological times. Now, I want you to understand in eschatological themes. And so I want you to understand end times. Eschatology, the study of the end times. So let me summarize Dr. Heiser's key insights on the Nephilim plainly and powerfully. First, Hebrew meaning, again, fallen ones. Not simply giants, as many assume. Fallen ones. That's a mistranslation influenced by the Greek Septuagint. Second, their identity. Heiser taught that the Nephilim were the hybrid offspring of divine beings, the sons of God, and human women. They weren't just powerful men. They were unnatural, forbidden, and part of a larger spiritual rebellion. Now, As always, we have to teach the cultural background. The biblical authors were writing in an ancient Near Eastern context. Pagan cultures told stories of demigods and divine beings corrupting humanity. But Scripture flips those myths to make a bold theological claim. Only Yahweh is holy. The Nephilim are the result of cosmic treason. Fourth, how did they survive the flood? Heiser suggests it wasn't that the original Nephilim survived, but that the divine rebellion repeated more than once, or that the corruption re-entered through the descendants of Noah's daughters-in-law. Either way, post-flood giants were still part of the same spiritual problem. Now, fifth, this is the takeaway, the theological takeaway here. The Nephilim aren't just ancient anomalies. Their existence is part of a broader supernatural narrative, a cosmic war between the Most High and rebellious spiritual powers. They reveal how deep the corruption went and why God judges the world. You say, and look, if this is you, I get it. I 100% get this notion where maybe you're kicking the tires on this faith thing initially, or maybe again, but you get to this part and you go, I don't want to serve or worship a God who would flood the earth and kill everybody, except for these people. Seems pretty controlling, right? We co-opt the vernacular, right? The original meaning, the original intention. And atheists, might say atheists, they look at only certain things that they believe contradict in Scripture. They either believe they contradict or they go against what they believe is their better nature. We are better than that. That God you serve He's not good. He judged the world. We're not supposed to judge. How judgy? Well, He's the Creator. That's one thing you get to do. So these, all of this is a revelation of how deep the corruption went, and why God judged the world. And finally, there's the New Testament connection. Heiser points out that in Jewish tradition, the disembodied spirits of Nephilim became the demons. Oh, there, I said it. Heiser points out that in Jewish tradition, right? It's not Dr. Shawn making this up. In Jewish tradition, the disembodied spirits of Nephilim became the demons. So when Yeshua casts out evil spirits, it's not random. He's undoing the legacy of the Watchers. He's reclaiming human souls from the offspring of rebellion. Now, let me answer this question, which I've been asked many times, is can believers, followers of the way, be possessed by demons? And the answer is no. No. You can't. You may have mental illness, but you can't be possessed by demons. If you're truly a follower of the way, you cannot be possessed by demons. So was Goliath and Nephilim. Let's go to the classic story. Why not? Let's see. Good lands. Holy moly. Okay. Was Goliath a Nephilim? 1 Samuel 17. By the way, if you're looking to write these down, 1 Samuel 17:4. Let me ask something while I'm at it, and I've thought about this. Everything I do is copyrighted. I have this thing called a rolling copyright. All the poems I write, all the songs I write, all the courses I write, all of these things, I have a copyright on everything. I learned the hard way. I generated massive amounts of content, you would call it nowadays, but teaching material, sermons, all of this, and I made the mistake of putting them out without a copyright. And I did that not realizing, same with my photography. But now with photography, people rip off your photography on social media all the time. By the way, it's usually 1/4 the clarity, the crispness, it's all, there's no comparison to the sharpness of the actual photo. The original photograph that people rip off is so much better. But they rip it off and they put it in frames. I had a guy call me one time. They said, Dr. Shawn, man, good luck with your calendars. I see they're doing real well. And I happened to know he was in Thailand. And I'm like, what? First of all, I've never appeared in a calendar, no matter what people say. Hey. A lot of you just vomited in your mouth just then. A little bit. Maybe a lot. Some of you had to pull over to do it. I'm sorry about that. Put that image in your mind. No. Calendar of my photography. And they happened to be in Thailand. They were in a shop. And there was 2 calendars there that had all of my work in it. Not attributed to me at all. No, none of it at all. But they swiped it. They swiped it. They swiped my stuff off of social media. It looked horrible. He thought they looked good, but I thought, oh, my goodness, you ought to see it in actual resolution. Anyway, so they did that. That's happened to me many times with different things that I've written over the years, even to the extent that someone ripped me off for enough of a material to write a book. And that's what they did. So, anywho, that's the reality. That's how it goes. 1 Samuel 17:4. A champion named Goliath from Gath came out of the Philistine camp. He was 6 cubits and a span tall. Well, that sounds big. That's over 9 feet tall, folks. Do the math. That's over 9 feet tall. But it gets deeper. Goliath wasn't alone. 2 Samuel 21 and 1 Chronicles 20, they mentioned that Goliath had brothers and that all of them were descendants of the Rephaim. Brothers of Goliath. Good lands. Hey, C. How are you? Good to see you. Thank you so much. And Miss Nettie. And Robert, and so many, Nicole, Kim, Martin, and all the ones I can't see. So 2 Samuel 21:20. There was another battle in Gath where there was a man of great size who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in all. He, too, was a descendant of Rephaim. Rephaim is a term used for ancient giants. Goliath was not an anomaly. He was part of a bloodline. That ought to be scary. A surviving branch of Nephilim. So where did these giants come from and what happened to them? After the flood, we read in Genesis 6:4 that the Nephilim were on the earth and in those days and also afterwards. See, we skip over that. Don't we think that they had some sort of impact? Aren't we curious? Remember what I said? This explains why, by the way, in Numbers 13:33, when the spies went out, the spies say, we saw Nephilim there, and we seem like grasshoppers. Well, if look, I'm 6'4". And sometimes when I stand next to people, I stood next to, I was up at Fox a lot in the years I was working and protecting different people, and so there's a particular person there who is very petite. I had no clue how petite she actually is. And I protected a very, prominent political person who also very petite, had no clue. And so when you see me standing next to them, it's funny. It's goofy. I look like a giant and they look like grasshoppers. So I call you grasshopper. Why are you calling me grasshopper? Because you are ugly, like insect. Yeah. Anyway, Numbers 13:33. We saw the Nephilim there. We seem like grasshoppers. Deuteronomy 3. King Og of Bashan, a giant, had a bed over 13 feet long. This is recorded. King Og of Bashan. Deuteronomy 3. It's real. Look it up. Go ahead on and look it up. Joshua, the Israelites are commanded to destroy the Anakim, another tribe of giants. So how did they survive the flood? Remember we talked about it. Second incursion of divine beings or the survival of corrupted human lineages. The apocryphal text of 1 Enoch confirms the Watchers descended again, continued their rebellion, and were eventually imprisoned. So who'd they marry? Well, Genesis 6 is pretty clear. The divine beings married human women. Their offspring were hybrids, not fully human, not fully divine. This wasn't love. I love you, girl. I can't find nobody likes me because I'm so gigantic and I smell bad because there ain't no showers I fit in. And you're the only one look at me a second time, so come on over here, baby. No, it wasn't that. It was a rebellion. It was a cosmic hijacking of humanity. And I've created images for that I was going to put up there, and I thought, I think I'll steer clear of that. But I'll see if I can resurrect them and maybe put them in comments after the fact, after, this video ends. That really I'm trying to depict what could have happened, between the giants and these women, daughters of men. And everyone that I did, everyone that I created kind of looked, I don't know why, but I didn't like how they looked. I didn't like what they intimated, Anyway, so it brought judgment, Jude 6 and 7. And the angels that did not keep within their original authority but abandoned their proper sphere, he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for the judgment of the great day. They're not just making this up. This is judgment that was brought because of the cosmic hijacking of humanity. And the angels that did not keep within their original authority but abandoned their proper sphere, he has kept in darkness, bound with everlasting chains for the judgment of the great day. Jude 6 and 7. So what was the impact on us today? We always love to know that. What's in it for me? Favorite station is IIFM. Thank you, C. I'm silly. She says, Doc is taking an extra funny pill. You're sweet. Very kind. A lot of my stuff are joke grenades. You pull the pin, throw it. After a while, you might be driving home going, oh, yeah, I got what he was meaning there. Anyway, so we always want to know what the impact, what is the impact on us today? That's great, great stories, blah, blah, blah. Why do I need to pay attention on? Why do I even need to know? I'm not saying you get all hung up on it. I'm not saying you be, constantly in this text trying, well, who are the Watchers? Are they around now? What about Shaq? Is Shaq one? No. Don't go down all those trails. It's pointless to be caught up in it and never leave it. I said this to a friend of mine. He's a very successful podcast and kind of group that he has. And I say this all the time. Balance. Balance, balance, balance. Your theological, your doctrinal, your what you believe and why, and what you teach and why needs to have balance. What you study needs to have balance. You need to read authors you don't agree with. Challenge your mind. Am I able to defend this thing that I believe? That was one of the things that Dr. Moen was so great at. Challenging you. Read this thing. I remember our syllabus for some of the doctoral, it had like 5 textbooks in it for one course. And I'm like, oh my lands, I don't have enough room to put all these books. Then I remember thinking to myself, self, because that's what I call me when I'm just talking to me. I said, self, now what in the world? I don't want to read this guy. I'm not reading this author. I know what this author's about. I'm not reading it. Then I contacted him about it. I said, hey, Dr. Moen, I'm a big fan. I certainly don't want to fail this course, but I don't love this person's writing. He says, point isn't whether you agree or not. It's to challenge your mind. How do you think? Thinking. Think. Training us to think. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do here. So what's the impact on us today? Here's the modern, and I think, look, I get it. I don't have a mortgage, a church mortgage. I mean, I have the mortgage of my home. I have the cost of this stuff and all the subscriptions that I have to run all this stuff. I thought it was free. Years ago, I thought it was free. But I learned different when I got into And I'm not monetized. I've hit the number for one, but I got to hit another number. Like on Rumble, you need 100. You need 100 followers minimum for any sort of ad sharing or whatever. I'm nowhere close to that. And then on YouTube, I've hit the number of subscribers, but I haven't, not enough wash hours, not enough, all that other stuff. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. But I don't get paid for it. And so it's easy for me to go, well, here's where the modern church often turns away. Well, we're brave and we won't. Well, I mean, I have skin in the game, but I don't, not like pastors who have to, they finish a sermon, there's how many ever people coming rushing all up on them going, well, Pastor, I love your preaching, but I have to bone to pick with you about what you said over here about the Nephilims and the giants. I have a bone to pick with you. And then you've got to reteach it, and you've got 900 people behind it. That was the way it was with my book. By the way, I wrote a book. It's my second. Really, it's not my second book, but my second book of this type. True Word, Faith for Life, Dr. Shawn. Lulu.com, Lulu.com. Then once you get there, search for Dr. Shawn, S-H-A-W-N, Michael Greener, Greener, like the grass is always greener. Hardback, very well done. Mr. Martin and my Tyrolean friend helped make this come to fruition. And by the way, the cover on the front and the back is my work, some of my work. And I was with Jerry and Myra out in the wilderness when I shot that image. There's a whole big story to it. You send me a comment. If you get the book, send me a comment or send me a smgreener@gmail.com. Send me an email or just put it in comments. And I'll explain to you the story behind that image. Anyway, look, it's easy for me. I guess the point I'm trying to get at here is it's easy for me to be all bold and go, well, I'm not turning away from this truth, that everybody else is afraid of. I get why I get it. I get why there is a reluctance for pastors to go deep on this. The presence of the Nephilim was more than physical. It was spiritual. Look, they brought violence. They brought sorcery. They brought corruption. The Apocrypha and 1 Enoch say that they taught mankind war. Well, that's bad enough as it is. They taught mankind, and I quote, they taught mankind war, witchcraft, and bloodshed. Yeshua came not only to redeem humans, but to defeat those dark spiritual forces. Hang on with me. I don't have long to go. Colossians 2:15. Stripping the rulers and the authorities of their power, he made a public spectacle of them, triumphing over them by means of the stake. 1 Peter 3:19. He also went and made a proclamation to the imprisoned spirits. Those spirits, the ones imprisoned since the days of Noah. It was wild times. It was not some idyllic time. When those people, when I do the teaching, Jesus Who, the Man on the Mountain, and I teach the Sermon on the Mount as it should be. There was a reason those people were so desperate. There's a reason why what Yeshua was saying was so radically different. Go listen to that. It's free. It's free. Anyway, let's just see here. All good. All good. I just got a weather warning. So those spirits that Yeshua was freeing, he made a proclamation, those spirits are the ones imprisoned since the days of Noah. Are you kidding me? Yeshua's death and resurrection wasn't just a human redemption story. It was a cosmic war victory. Who were the Nephilim? They were the spawn of rebellion. They were spiritual insurgents. And they infected the human story. And Goliath, he was their descendant. Look, the giants were real. Don't let anybody tell you they weren't real. Their corruption, don't let anybody tell you it wasn't real. It was real. The giants were real. The corruption was real. Their legacy of war, pride, and power still infects us and impacts us today. But Yeshua, he crushed the serpent. He broke the power of the watchers. He redeemed humanity from the hybrid corruption. And he's coming again to finish what was started in Genesis 3:15. You see, that's the real. That's the real. This is foundational theology, tied directly to spiritual warfare, the cosmic rebellion, and the mission of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus Christ. Look, I love teaching the whole picture. And I have to say, I am honored that all of you take the time to listen to this. I'm honored when you share, when you click on the little like thing, the thumbs up, you share it, and if you click on subscribe and follow and all that stuff. I'm honored by that. No doubt about it. By the way, I don't know if I mentioned this. One of the things Dr. Heiser says is, and he details this, he ties it to 1 Enoch. There's a more detailed insight there. 200 watchers or angelic beings rebelled. So there's 200 of them to start with, right? 200. They descended to Mount Hermon. They took human wives. Their offspring became giants who spread violence, corruption, and forbidden knowledge, including sorcery, war, and occult practices. Listen, these are real things. The Aramaic worldview of Daniel's time affirmed a structure of divine realm with God on the throne, surrounded by a heavenly court, Daniel 7. Ancient Mesopotamian texts like Gilgamesh and the Apocrypha speak of half-divine heroes. This is not just a quick mention in the Bible, the Holy Bible. It's throughout literature. And Genesis redefines them as corruptions, not as champions. This helps us reframe the flood not as punishment for some vague sin. You've heard it a million times from people who just simply don't want to believe. They say it's some vague sin. You're God. You're God. Oh no, he's all of our God. That somehow or another, he got a little ticked off. And he's like, my feelings are hurt. No, it's not what happened at all. This wasn't some vague sin for which the flood was this epic punishment. It's God's targeted judgment against corrupted bloodlines and divine treason. And we can say what we want. We can say what we want. We can quote Ephesians 6:12. Our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the powers, against the world forces of this darkness, against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. We can recite that scripture, and it is amazing. Ephesians 6:12 is absolutely amazing. But here's the thing. You got to understand what that's talking about. You got to understand what that's referring to and the connection. And I hope I've drawn this sharp connection to you and to me. Where did they go, by the way? Somebody just sent me a message on my phone. That's what I was reading. Where did they go? Scripture tells us their bodies were destroyed, but their spirits were not. According to Enoch and echoed in 1 Peter 3:19-20 and Jude 6, the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim became what we now call demons roaming the earth, hostile to humanity. These spirits, born of heaven and earth, yet rejected by both, became the chaotic forces that still plague mankind. Yeshua confronted these spirits during his ministry, and Revelation tells us their final judgment. It's not a myth. It's not a theological foundation of Sunday school stories on flannel graph. It's not a myth. It's a theological foundation for the understanding of the cosmic war between God and the forces of darkness. Why Messiah had to come, not just to save souls, big enough, big thing. Thank God, but to reclaim dominion to crush rebellion, and to redeem all creation. Look, understanding Genesis 6, understanding that does more than satisfy curiosity. It helps us reject watered-down theology that strips Scripture of its power. Watered-down theology. Look, when you water down theology, and you do that in such a way that has effect, you strip Scripture of its power. And so, understanding Genesis 6 helps us to recover the biblical worldview of spiritual warfare. Now look, realize that Yeshua's mission, it was global, it was cosmic, and it's eternal in scope, and it's his mission today. And as followers of the way, we face a real enemy. We fight a real battle, but we serve a real king, and he's already won. So when we read Genesis 6, we're not just reading fantasy. Someone just put in the live chat, YouTube live chat, I'm sorry, I thought this was a spoof site. I don't know how you would ever think that, but that's okay. We're not fantasy. We're not reading fantasy. We're not a spoof. We're reading the prelude to redemption's greatest showdown. What part will you play in this greatest showdown? What part will you play? What's your role? Because this is happening. This is not some fantastical thing that we imagine in our mind. It's coming. I'm not going to be like the ones that say, oh, I feel like the Lord's right around the corner. I feel like his return is imminent. It's any minute. I don't know. We're not to crane our head to heaven. To focus on trusting and obeying. We're focused on obedience and following, being followers of the way, learning about God, helping to understand him. That's the hard part. It's real easy to sit around going, it's going to be any day, and then it doesn't happen. Well, it's going to be soon. I feel like it's going to be, I think this is the time. This is what's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen. And then, well, I think this big thing's going to happen. Well, it doesn't happen. It's very tempting to teach that because it gets followers and subscribers and gets clicks. That's not the way I teach. And I do thank you. I sincerely appreciate you tuning in today to True Word Faith for Life with Dr. Shawn, teaching the Bible as it was meant to be understood for a life that truly matters. Don't forget to subscribe and share this truth. And by the way, join me on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for another part of this story you just won't believe. Till then, I appreciate you more than you ever know. If you like this video, click on like and subscribe and follow and share. Leave a comment. It's free of charge. God bless you. Shalom, shalom. Shalom alaikum.